Welcome back. You are watching Newscentre. EXL Vice Chairman and CEO Rohit Kapoor has said that generative artificial intelligence will not lead to a job famine, but instead it will create more jobs. Speaking exclusively to CNBC-TV18, Kapoor has also said that the regulation of artificial intelligence is crucial and that India is on the right track.
I don't think generative AI is going to just have a job famine take place and there's going to be elimination of all jobs as such. Every time there is a new wave of technology, yes, there are a few jobs that get eliminated, but many, many more get created. And by the way, these are better jobs which are more interesting, more challenging, and more fun. So I'm very, very optimistic about what generative AI will do for the job market. In terms of how EXL is applying generative AI for its clients, we are helping them across three different dimensions. Number one is how can we help a client improve the work that they do within their own enterprise and become a lot more productive. So think about this as employees of an organization being able to access information that they want, query things that they want, and it acting like a wiki for them internally. So that's the first area. The second area is how can we help the people within an organization that serve end customers become a lot more smarter, become a lot more productive, and be a lot more helpful to the end customer so that interaction is a lot smoother. So this is all about Smart Agent Assist. These are tools that we are putting into place that will allow an agent during a live conversation or a live customer interaction to be able to have the right insight at the right time and have a more productive conversation. And finally, the third area, which is the ultimate goal, is to be able to help end customers be able to self-serve themselves using generative AI or be able to get the right kind of product offering at the right price and the right time, again, on a self-coordinated basis. So that's something which we are working on. Most of our clients are working in bucket number 1 and bucket number 2, which is they're applying this internally to improve their efficiencies, and they're applying this to help their agents serve customers. And I think this will extend itself to the end customer finally, and that's going to be a very, very exciting day.
Right. Now, when we speak about generative AI, countries are coming up with their own regulations. What's the best approach for a country like India to take?
So I think regulation is going to be key for generative AI, and that's something which all governments are taking a look at. I was fortunate that I was part of NASSCOM's delegation to Washington, D.C. just last week. And along with the NASSCOM delegation, we met with several policy leaders in Washington, D.C. And I think the way in which India is thinking about regulation on Gen AI is absolutely the right way. There are basically two tenets on regulation in generative AI. One is self-governance, which means every single company has to be a responsible corporate citizen, and they must think about responsible AI. And what does responsible AI mean? It means transparency of how you're getting to the outcome. It means accountability for how you're coming up with that outcome. It means cleansing your data to make sure that you're using accurate data as the input to get to the output. So all of these are fundamental principles which every single company can deploy. The second principle is really about, can we have global coordination around generative AI? AI does not know boundaries of geographies or countries or political systems. AI operates on data, and that's all it cares about. So actually having coordination amongst the US, India, Europe, and other countries, that's going to be fundamentally important because in today's business environment, work is done globally, data is kept on the cloud and it's globally situated, and you need to have global coordination in order to really leverage the full power of generative AI.
So you need global alignment in laws and standards.
Absolutely, absolutely. And our interactions in the US with the US policymakers were actually very encouraging because they see it exactly the same way. They see India as a very, very strong partner for them in terms of helping build this ecosystem of generative AI. We have to have these guardrails that we establish. These have to be globally aligned, and these have to be understood universally. And once you set that up, then it becomes very easy to create a sandbox in which you can create, you can deploy, and you can do things which do not create much harm.
Right. I'd like to ask you about regulations in China. There has been a bit of worry about how this may impact U.S. companies in the AI space. How do you see the regulations in China?
So I think the regulations in China seem to be much more specific as to how they'd like to apply this for their own country and how they'd like to deploy.
In the context of national sovereignty.
Yes, in the context of national sovereignty. And, look, let's be clear about this. AI and generative AI has become the most important tool for competitive advantage as we move forward in the global economy. So there is going to be this tendency of countries or geographies to be able to leverage this for their own advantage. And I think right now it's just the beginning. They've started out with the regulations that they'd like to propose. Even the EU has proposed a few regulations on AI. And I think having initial sets of regulations is fine. But there will be a need to have these globally coordinated. Otherwise, the globalization phenomenon, I think that's going to take a back step. So that's the big risk out there, because anytime you have isolation and you have countries and geographies applying individual policies, I think you run the risk of having deglobalization take place.
What are the risks, if I were to ask you to elaborate, if we have different approaches, different regulations with regard to AI?
So the biggest risk with AI is that you get false information and false results with the pretense of it actually being real and truthful, right? And that's the biggest error that can happen. You can have a bias in terms of your outcome. You can have incorrect data being fed in and therefore get an incorrect response. And it's very difficult to verify the authenticity of that output. So that's the biggest risk out there. Now imagine if this happens globally and you have pockets where there are different types of regulations and different types of standards that are taking place. Well, truth is black or white. This will end up making it gray, and that creates a lot of friction. It'll create a lot of, deproductivity actually, because you'll spend a lot of time trying to verify which information is correct, which information is not correct. And this misperception in the environment, that's going to actually not be helpful to progress and to growth.
All right, EXL, which is into data analytics, operations management, and generative AI, pitching for global synchronization in AI regulations. Otherwise, there could be bias in results that we get through AI applications. With that, it's a wrap on this edition of Newscentre. More updates continue right here.